Welcome, guys, to another episode of the One Last Gas podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Merriel Solesky here. Say hi, Merriel.
Yo, what's going on?
I know we've been kind of on and off for like the last month or two, but I think it's time for another episode for us to talk fishing and kayaking. So, yeah, how's fishing been?
Um, I haven't been fishing as much as I like.
I figured.
And I say that because people say it's not fair that. So I ran into some. Okay, I shared a little story. I ran into one of our listeners at a walk-up spot, and I walked into a spot, and then I was fishing, and as I was leaving, he pulls up, and he gets out of his car, and he's like, "Hey, man, are you that podcast guy?" And I met him at a tournament, saltwater survival series, um, and I haven't fished that like in 2 or 3 years. So I met him there once, and then I guess I talk about my walk up spots a couple times. Actually, I ran into him again, and we started to talking, and it's great to see you, Adam. And thank you for listening. Big shout out to you at a walk up spot. But it's I guess it wouldn't be fair that I still go to my walk up spots. But to me, I don't think that's fishing. I think that's just like, what do you call that? That's just something that I do, like just to check on fish to see if they're here or there. So I don't count that
I
as
mean,
fishing.
that's still fishing.
And then
I
I
mean,
think see, and then me and my son sometimes, because the water's right here for me, so we'll just go out here and throw the cast net, and he likes catching the little bait fish and explaining to what are these different species that we're catching in the cast net, and how the weather and the wind and everything, dictates like what the fish do in this area by my house. And I live by Clear Lake, so Clear Lake's, I can walk to the water from where I'm at. So,
yeah.
but to me, I feel like that's not really fishing. That's when I'm in a kayak and I'm actually out there doing my thing, hunting them down. I feel like that is more of fishing.
That's
Uh,
still fishing. That's still fishing. I consider it fishing. You're selling yourself short. And I'll get into a story because I was at a tournament this past weekend, and there were some people talking about you, and I'll share that what they're saying. So
he said
uh,
that's lurking.
yeah, that's lurking. That's lurking. That could be lurking too.
That's
Uh,
a good one, Orlando.
before we get into that, I want to definitely give a shout out to our sponsors. We have Knocking Tail Lures, our preferred soft plastics. They not only swim in the fall, but they have a built-in rattle. Michael has a bunch of stuff coming down the pipeline as well. He has his popping corks that are, I believe, they just released within the last couple weeks. Also, we have his a doing different type of soft plastic with the TPE plastic that's a little more durable. That's out there, and his I believe he's also coming out with a shrimp model as well. So just kind of new things coming out. But if you're looking for great soft plastics, go to knockingtaillures.com and find all the colors and the sizes there. Also, 4A printing. If you're looking for towels and stuff like that, Aaron will hook you up. Search 4A printing on Facebook, and he'll get you set up with that. And also, DSKA, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for talk kayak fishing up and down the Texas coast, search up DSKA on Facebook, as well as Matagorda Kayak Fishing, another new group specifically catering towards Matagorda. Just if you're looking for another group specifically for Matagorda, go there. Good segue into our topic today. But before we do that, also, Brittany Solesky, if you're looking for real estate here in the Houston area, either commercial or residential, give her a call at 281-740-0498, and she'll get you your property that you're looking for. So if you're looking at the title, this is all about Matagorda today. I know that's a lot of people's quote unquote secret honey hole area spots, whatever. I am here to say that I've gotten messages stating that there's no fish in Matagorda. I'm more than inclined to believe that because I haven't caught many fish in Matagorda. But I definitely wanted to give us an opportunity to kind of talk about our experiences. Like I said, I did a tournament this past weekend, what I learned, and just kind of go through that process and just share that information. There's not going to be really any. I'm not, as far as I know, and I was just there. I'm just what I see, how I experienced it, nothing too major. Um, if I happen to give away your coordinates, sorry, there's no coordinates. I'm not giving you any coordinates. I'm just, it is what it is.
I'm about to
So
break it down, like
he's about to break it down. Okay.
everything.
Yeah. So yeah, if you wanna gather your friends and join us live, you can find us at facebook.com/1lastcast podcast. We try to be live every other Tuesday. It's been a little bit inconsistent lately, but we try to be live every other Tuesday. You can also find us online at onelastcastpodcast.com, as well as all of your favorite streaming platforms. So yeah, I was this past weekend. I was fishing the Matagorda kayak fishing spring slam tournament. Great tournament. I think we had over 30 teams enter, which is a lot. And it was one of the cool things I actually liked about the tournament, which I didn't realize at the time. It's a shotgun start, very reminiscent of the saltwater survival series, kind of the old style saltwater survival series where you go in and get your packet of lures and you just go off. There's no lures this time, but it was literally we all have a captain's meeting, and then at 6:30 everybody just drives off from our captain's meeting, and kayaks can be in the water at 7 and go on from there. Um, and oh, Brittany, Meryl's wife, just said that if she sells you a house with her, she'll hook you up with all of Meryl's spots. So, I mean, that may be worth more than the house itself. Um, you may want to jump in on that. So,
That's terrible. It's terrible. Well, Brittany's been it has been successful for her. We have sold 3 properties, or we got somebody into a property. We sold a property, and yeah, she's been 3 trips have been booked from Brittany. So got to take them fishing.
yep, yep. Uh, so yeah, it was a shotgun start, and I have not fished Matagorda since probably 2014, 2013 ish. It's been a while. So I am basing a lot of my knowledge of the water, just looking at it, and also spent a lot of time on Google Maps the weeks prior, going to fishing reports, just going through that. And yeah, so Matagorda, I went in blind. I really went in blind. I didn't really know what to expect, uh, and I had a game plan, and that game plan involved me going down the 3 mile cut with 2-wheel drive. uh, that was that was not
That's
not that was not the play. Uh,
you learned
uh,
that that's one lesson you learn is the three
oh
mile
yeah,
cut. Yeah.
it's real funny though. So I wasn't the only one who went down that way. However, I was last, which was my fatal flaw. So I was last in the line of like 6 or 7 trucks. It was really cool. So we drove off from after the captain's meeting. We drove off at 6:30, and there was like 6 or 7 trucks going down the road, going down to a 3 mile cut. We're all going in a line. We all turned the same way, and we all stopped at the entrance to the beach. Everybody was kind of just looking and eyeing, the path, and everybody except for me had four-wheel drive, or at least they knew what they were doing. Uh, and halfway through the me, like I need to send it. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. I stopped, and I got stuck. So, and I was like, man, I hopefully somebody can help me pull me out. All the rest of the cars are already down down the beach, going down that way, and I'm like, oh shoot, I am stuck. What am I going to do? And luckily, some high school kid, I didn't catch his name, or I wouldn't say high school kid. He looked very young with his girlfriend. They were going to go fishing that day. And he put into Matagorda off road recovery. And half an hour later, I got pulled out. Um, and I decided, okay, I am not going to go on the beach. I'm not going to go 3 mile cut, because what's going to happen is I'm going to get to where I need to go if I don't get stuck along the way. I'm going to get to where I need to go. I'm going to have a winning stringer, and I'm going to get stuck on the way back, and I'm not going to make the way in. That's what's going to happen. So I decided that I was going to just go back, launch on the bay side of East Matagorda Bay, which is what the boundary was, off that marsh area, and just paddle or motor all the way down to 3 mile cut and keep fishing down, going down that way to the east. And
Depending on how fast your motor is, that's about a good like 15 to 30 minutes minimum.
yeah, yeah, it didn't, I fished along the way, so it took a little bit longer. We had very low tides that day, and again, I was kind of going blind. A lot of kayakers fish that western part of East Matagorda Bay, that those marsh areas. They kind of launched and they started fishing that area. It was really cool to see. You could see like lines of kayakers out there, and um, I was the only one that went out towards 3 Mile Cut. Um, and even when I got to 3 Mile Cut, along the way I did not see a single other kayaker. So I'm assuming the other kayakers who launch at 3 Mile Cut, or they may have gone to the end, who knows? They launched and continued going east. But yeah, it was a very tough day. Not only did I not have any knowledge of the area, the water was low. There was a lot of boaters out there. Some of those tower boaters kept running. So I'd be fishing probably about 50 yards off the shoreline. Again, it's very low, and I would have tower boats running between me and the shoreline. Um, Happened 4, 5, 6 times throughout the day, uh, and it was frustrating. Uh, Fish weren't biting. I think by noon I probably caught maybe one dink trout. Um, I saw some redfish. They were up shallow. I spooked them, and it was just a tough day. I decided to make the run across, so going north to the north shoreline of East Matagorda Bay, uh, and just kind of fish along the way back. And by the time I got halfway back to where I launched from, that's when I figured they were in that 3 to 4 foot range. Uh, and I just started getting bites. I caught, a trout about 185, 19. Not huge, excuse me, not huge, but it was a good trout. I ended up catching about 20 trout um, in that probably last hour and a half, and most of them were dinks. Probably about 6 or 7 of them were keepers, and I had to hightail it back in. Um, and by the time I loaded up and got to the weigh-in, when I got to the weigh-in, it was I had 2 minutes remaining before they closed the scales. Got in there. Unfortunately, my trout was dead because I literally hightailed it back in, and yeah, I lost out on that the side pot for trout. I think the winning was 209. So if it was alive, maybe I could have hit that. Who knows? But good tournament, a lot of fun, and just a good overall experience. Uh, yeah, it was a much different more it was a lot more different than I expected it to be. I was looking at Google Maps and I was figuring that the south shoreline of East Matagorda Bay was going to be very similar to the south shoreline of Galveston, and it wasn't the case. I was expecting patches of grass. I didn't find much grass, if there was any at all. I was expecting the water to be a lot more clear. This could have been a byproduct of low tide, but it was not clear. Once you get towards the middle of the bay, it was a little more clear, and what I was expecting. And yeah, that shoreline had a lot of scattered oyster beds.
Yeah. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I would say
Yeah.
you would be spot on. There was
Yeah.
a lot more grass on those
Hmm.
shorelines back about 4 or 5 years ago. I think with all the freezes that came through,
Mm.
that might have affected the grass growth on those shorelines. But yeah, the water was a little bit clear. There was a lot more grass. I want to say it was turtle grass that they had a lot of. I'm not too sure. It might be what is it called? Grass?
I don't know.
Shell grass. Anyways, I'm not going to try to say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did have a lot of that grass there. But, you know, Mother Nature changed things.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a lot more sandy bottom. Uh, it I was expecting the shoreline to have a little bit more contour to it. As in like there was a bunch of marshes on that south shoreline, and I was expecting some deeper cuts, some pockets. I looked for them. I couldn't find any really good pockets that were interesting to me. Uh, the pockets I did find, it would literally be like it went from 1.5 to like 2, and it'd be very small. So I couldn't really find those differentiation I was looking for. Um, Also, I forgot to bring my spoons. I really wanted to use a spoon over there, just because I was covering so much water that I needed. I felt like a spoon would probably have been the call for that area, and there was a lot of bait, so I just need something to be a little more flashy. Uh, but yeah, I moved all the way up to that north shoreline. That north shoreline was a little bit more reminiscent of what I was expecting for like the north shoreline of Galveston Bay. It was a little more clean. I think there was some grass up there. I think if you go from the opening of East Matagorda Bay to the ICW, if you go to the east from there, I think there are some scattered oyster reefs to that on the North Shoreline going that way. You can see those on Google Maps. Um,
Yeah, those are good ones to fish. Also, there's so when you're coming to that mouth, that opening that goes into it,
mhm.
there's literally a reef like straight back about 10 to 20 feet, maybe just for like into the bay. There's a really good, nice reef right back there that
Yeah,
holds, yeah, and it kind of goes back inwards.
yeah.
Like, yeah. And then, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, no, no. I was fishing there. Um, there was a lot of boats actually around there. What another thing that we were dealing with from a fishing perspective was it was a full moon, so we had an incoming tide all day, and the water was low, and the fish had probably been feeding all night. So it was. I think that was kind of had something to going against. I was going against that too. Um, yeah, so whenever I made that move to cross Matagorda to get to that opening, I found those reefs and there just wasn't anything there. If I stayed there, maybe would have turned on. Um, but the problem
Yeah,
was that from there to go back to my launch spot, it would have been like an hour or so just to
right.
kind of make our way. So
Yeah,
I
that's a
just slowly,
stretch.
yeah, it's a stretch. Um, so I literally fished along the way back. The water's much cleaner. Um, there wasn't as much bait on that side compared to the south shoreline. But I think that kind of helped too, because since there's not as much bait, the fish that were hungry were eating, as opposed to the fish on the south shoreline where they had their pick of whatever else they could find. So I kind of think that was a condition I was looking at as well. And yeah, I just fished along on the way back, and I started fishing those coves basically where the mouth for all those marsh going from the road to the bay. It kind of opened up, and that's where all those trout were. Um, but yeah, I think one of the things definitely I wish I had a spoon. I My style of fishing is very fast and basically power fishing. I'm looking for those feeding fish, not specifically targeting a specific area where I know the fish are. Considering also that I didn't know the area, so that's kind of where I was there. We also have Chris saying there's no fish in Matagorda, so don't waste our time. Yeah, there. I spent all day and I only caught a few handful of fish. There's really no fish in Matagorda. Um, so also the tournament, only one team turned in a slam, I think. So yeah, it just man that freeze must have really decimated those fish populations in there.
Yeah, it must have done something, right?
Done something, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
No, go ahead.
you have experiences in Matagorda, and I like I
So
said, I this was new to me. So, what about
I
yours?
have experience fishing Matagorda bay fishing, and I have experience fishing Matagorda offshore fishing. Offshore, there's a ton of sharks. Sometimes kingfish, cobia run through there, and then as well as tarpon, they run through there. My mainly offshore fishing in Matagorda would be tarpon. Um, but for inshore, I think I fished that whole area. I've actually fished it with a couple guides as well, and it's like they're always like, "Oh, I'm gonna take you to the spot. Can't tell nobody." And it's like, "Yeah, I've already been here. Like I've already fished this spot. Like this, like in the middle of the whole Matagorda, there'll be like this little small shell of it has a whole bunch of patches of reef scattered in Matagorda, all the way from where Sargent is, all the way heading towards like you're heading towards the edge of the shoreline towards the Colorado River. But you know that shoreline. But yeah, I fished. I want to say I fished all of Matagorda, east and west. Um, but I fish it like you were fishing it though. A lot of times, um, is where you're focusing on those pockets or those channels that come out from those fingers that go into like a marsh and they come out into the main bay. I've also been successful in some of those fingers where I go in to those canals and those channels, and they're deep. And some of them are deeper than other ones, and some of them are shallower than other ones. I know it's a good wade fishing spot, especially that south shoreline and the Sargent side too. A lot of wade fishermen like to get out and wade fish there in the wintertime for big trout. And they fish those. They don't necessarily fish as the water comes out, but they'll fish the flat that's right next to it because those big trout will go up on those flats to feed during the winter times. Um, During like the spring, summer, I like hitting those reef parts. And some reefs they do better on the incoming, and some do better on the outgoing. Sometimes it flops, but it's just you wouldn't know until you go over there and you fish it and you kind of get a feel for it. Sometimes they're on the left side of the reef, sometimes on the right side of the reef, or sometimes they're right in the middle, or sometimes they're behind it, sometimes they're in front of it. And there's a whole bunch of scattered small reefs in the middle of that bay system. But kayak fishing is if I'm kayak fishing, sometimes I like to fish it the way you figured out towards the end, is just fishing those coves, those pockets, those little because some of those things they come out and they get deeper right there, deeper pockets, and then sometimes those deeper pockets have fingerlings that come off of those that are a little bit deeper, and then those trout like to sit right in those little pockets. And I've been there where I've seen big schools of trout and redfish move up and down those shorelines from east to west, and from north to south on that back shoreline. Um, but it's that I've definitely had my fair share of that bay, and not only that, north of the ICW too. I fish those some of those back bays back there because there's plenty of water to fish back there. Um, my favorite lure to throw that's in that area is a fat boy, a pink fat boy. And that's what I love. And I catch reds and trout on it. And I'm targeting mainly big trout, but those reds, they love that fat boy too. And sometimes you get in a mess of redfish. So when that happens, I'll switch to fat boy. If I catch one on the fat boy, I'll take the fat boy off so I don't ruin it too bad, and then I'll tie on a lure, and then I'll catch a whole bunch of redfish. But you catch a good school up and down that shoreline, it can really be
Yeah.
rewarding.
Towards the
Um,
end towards the end
Go
of the
ahead.
day, a lot of the guide boats that were out there, they were drifting that eastern, or I guess the western part of East Matagorda Bay, all those open coves that empty out from the finger kind of reaches that you're talking about, and they're just drifting over. And I kind of, um, I guess I was coming back in. By the time I was going back in, a lot of those boats were gone, and I just started kind of sitting in those areas and trying to figure out these depth changes. And I didn't throw because I was fishing so fast and hard. I didn't have time, or I didn't throw a corky or anything like that. And I
I don't know if I'd have thrown a fat boy right now, but
so
been winter
actually
time.
right now, so where I started catching those trout, I should have probably thrown a corky, because I was
Mm,
in. It may have been the way that the way that I read the water was that is exactly like you said. I found a little deeper area from the in the cove where the outflow from those finger uh, of those marshes were, and it branched out a little bit to my right and left. Because if I kept drifting past it, it would actually come up again. It would be a little bit shallower. But then if I went to the right or left, it would slope down again. So it was a little area, and that's where I started getting all my bites. And what I was doing, I was just drifting over it over and over again. Um, I should have staked down and just sat there and just worked it, but I was just cover. I wanted to cover as much water as I could. But all that, if you look at my GPS in that area, it's literally just like a bunch of circles because I'm just going back over and over and over again, and just drifting back, drifting back, drifting back. And I was probably only drifting like, you know, 50, 60 yards, and now I just come back around and do it over again. I should have just anchored down. Again, lessons learned, but should have just anchored down and worked at it. But I just did those drifts because it worked. You just all those drifts. I was getting hits and I was getting bites, and that's what I was doing. Um, Another interesting one that I was looking at, and the reason why I didn't go over there is because I had more common sense at that point, and being like, probably shouldn't drive over there, and launch from like the beach side was all the way on the west side, towards Sargent of East Matagorda Bay. That one was more reminiscent of like San Luis Pass, where you have that big open area. You have the outflow going into the Gulf of Mexico. You have some of these barrier islands are kind of set up, and then you have those deep guts that just snake throughout those areas. I really wanted to go over there and fish. The problem was that because I was unfamiliar with the area, I would have preferred to fish with somebody just because it's new. I don't want to just get caught in a bad situation because the San Luis Pass claims lives all the time, every year. So I would assume this is the same. And me being new, I didn't want to go in there without having a second pair of eyes on me. Um, just a safety thing. Also, launching over there was a little bit more challenging. I should have asked for clarification. I didn't, but I didn't know if the launch if I felt like my launch area in Sargent was outside the boundary, so I don't know if I could cross that boundary to go fish into the East Matagorda boundary area. Um, so to me, it was just too much work, and I didn't want to deal with it. So I just ended up not going over there. But that's really what one of the other plans that I had going on in my head, just because you know Stanley Pass this time of year, it's it can be good. Um, so I would assume over there would have been the same or similar. So
I would
yeah,
think so. Yeah. So if you would have went there, you probably would have saw at least 4 or 5 boats hanging out off
yeah,
those banks and wade fishing and working that water flow coming
yeah,
in and out. Um, I've been there one time where I saw sharks moving on those flats right there by that opening. Haven't heard of a shark attack, but I've been on that flat when sharks roam that flat, and I guess that happens at San Luis
that
Pass too,
happens
as
all the
well,
time.
right?
So
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think that would have been a if you could, I think you'd have been a lot more successful
yeah,
with
and
that
I
plan.
think
My
that
opinion.
one would have been if I did it, if I executed that, it would have been a lot more familiar to me. Just because I think that would have been much more similar to San Luis Pass than the interior part of East Matagorda or Matagorda Bay is similar to like the South shoreline of Galveston Bay. I think, like you said, the grass may have died off, and I think I was talking to some other anglers, and while there are similarities, the fish behave differently, and that makes more sense now. The fish behave
Absolutely,
differently over there than compared to like
absolutely.
I was trying to fish it like I was fishing
Yes.
Galveston, which is not how you're supposed to do it.
No.
I figured it out, but I figured it took me like the whole time to figure it out. So
Yeah, that's a good thing because you can go back with
yeah,
that knowledge and then execute right, and then it'll probably be a lot more productive the second time you go out there and do what you need to do. But yeah, I agree 100%. Like Matagorda is a totally different fishing style and how you fish it than you would on the South Shoreline Flat, you know,
yeah.
Galveston Flat.
Um,
But
I will say, and I actually told my wife this when I got back. Uh, the drive from where I live to Matagorda was actually one of the most beautiful drives I've ever been on, and that's this is me coming from me who I crisscross Texas on occasion, um, and that was a very beautiful drive. The town is really really nice. When I left, I kind of drove around the town, very reminiscent of a sleepy beach town, and of course it's kind of a by putting it out there, I'm probably going to ruin it, but it's a sleepy beach town. There's just everything seems to be moving a little bit slower there, which I kind of like. So yeah, if you ever looking for a fishing place and just kind of nice, just I would say check out Matagorda. It's a little bit of a drive, but I think everywhere nice nowadays, you have to drive a little bit. So I probably just missed.
Yeah, if you had the opportunity, which bait would you switch to fish that area?
Um, I one so again, one of in the very early morning when I was kind of working that south shoreline, um, there were just so much bait in the area that it really reminded me of times that I was really successful with the Mirrodine. So I was throwing the Mirrodine a lot in the early morning, and I was probably unsuccessful because I don't think the fish were in that area at that point. Um, so I think next time, though, again, same thing with I was saying with the corky. I'd fish. Of course, next time the conditions will be different, and maybe the water's higher. So that because all of my information that I found online, just looking at it, the South Shoreline was fire like the weeks prior. Like they should have been there, and they probably were. Um, but I'm thinking next time if the water's higher, I'll still fish that South Shoreline, work the Mirrodine or work that Corky. But same thing with that that western shoreline of East Matagorda Bay. Work that over there. I think that that holds potential because the water, even though I'm saying it's dirty, it was actually very nice for fishing. It wasn't too clear, but it wasn't too dirty. So it's that kind of mid off green kind of color. So yeah, whenever it gets like too clean, it gets a little bit difficult. When it gets too dirty, it's obviously too difficult. But it was in that really nice mid range where it was still clear, but not really that clear. But yeah, the Mirrodine. The Mirrodine is probably my go to.
Yeah, you love throwing that Merridine.
Yeah.
So the was it a blueback that the one you like throwing or
Um. The no, it's the 808 color is my favorite, which is orange. It's orange and like um bronze, like a silver
mm,
bronze is like my favorite color.
mm, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What about top water? You think you can throw your top waters out there since it being real shallow?
Yeah.
I've done pretty good there with top waters.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was throwing the Clown Spook Junior, and I was throwing that a little bit too, just because if I'm trying to cover water, and it's just top water is um, it's just something that you can cover a lot of water with. I just lost confidence in it, especially with it being a full moon and it being so shallow that I kind of lost confidence in doing that. Um, I also threw a for Christmas I got my son a paint your lure kit.
oh, that's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, so he painted me like a popper, a jointed popper, and I threw that for a little bit too, just for the heck of it. uh, uh,
So
he really wants me to catch a fish with it. That's why. But yeah,
the Brent said that there's a tournament July 26th.
yeah, that's the
Um,
I believe that's the next Matagorda kayak fishing tournament um,
okay, and I
upcoming.
know sometimes they host
They host meetups
Joey.
on occasion. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I need to make that. I haven't responded to any of his messages. It's just like
yeah,
because in my mind I'm like I'm gonna go, and then it's like something comes up, and it's like man I can't go. So it's like I don't want to make any commitment until I know like a day or two before, and then I'll be like I'm gonna go for sure, unless I just like schedule the dang thing like this is what I'm doing like for
yeah.
2 days.
You need to put it on your calendar.
Yeah, that's what
Just
if I
put it on your
just stick it
calendar.
on the calendar and say like we're gonna do this these days, and I probably need to start doing that because there's always something to do. Seems like, but yeah, man. So like if you had the opportunity, right? What would make you go for fishing those pockets or the drains? I guess we'll just call them drains, right?
Yeah,
Drains, flats. They also have guts, like especially by 3 Mile. There's this unusual gut by 3 Mile that's not. It's a little bit off the shoreline, but then there's just this gut that just runs this way, and fish love hanging out in that gut. Um, and like what would make you determine, okay, do I fish the gut, do I fish the mouth, do I fish the flat, do I fish the reef? I guess you didn't do too much reef fishing, did you?
No. I looking back at it now, knowing the conditions. Um, so we had those really, really super low tides. I would not have focused on the shallow areas. Uh, I just, for whatever reason, the fish weren't there. Only reason why.
Just so, I just want to say, just so you know that sometimes those shallow areas are very rewarding,
Oh
especially for
yeah,
big trout. So I wouldn't X that out the map unless you tried it and said, okay, they're not there. But
yeah.
like
I
some, go ahead,
for the
sorry, go ahead.
yeah for the tournament for my tournament purposes, um, with the low tide and looking along the way out, I like it was super low tide. Like I didn't get out of my. We're not allowed to. The tournament doesn't allow you to get out of your kayak. I If it did allow me, I would have walked around just to kind of stomp and feel around. That's usually my what I like to do. Um, but going in and just going in those really shallow areas, seeing the the exposed oyster reef on the south shoreline, I should have if I was especially looking for redfish as like one it's a slam tournament, so redfish was one of them. I would have imagined I would have seen redfish just busting bait, cruising up and down the shoreline, and they may have been. I just got out there at like 8:30, so instead of 7. Um, so seeing that, I probably wouldn't have focused on that, and with the tide out, I should have focused on those deeper areas. Um, I probably would have just focused on those open pockets where the fingers come out at. I should have just started there and worked that. Um, and Jeremy, we are talking about Matagorda today. So apparently, the according to the chat, there's no fish in Matagorda, but and I'm like I said, I'm inclined to believe them because I didn't catch much fish in Matagorda. So, but yeah, I would have
The
focused
good,
on those deeper
the
areas.
good side of Matagorda, Jeremy. I'm
um,
just kidding.
yeah, I would have focused on those deeper areas and kind of figured it out from there. But yeah, I as we talk about it, I'm regretting more of like not going and fishing that towards Sargent, um, because that would have been a lot more familiar for me. Um, the full moon bite wouldn't have been affected as much during in that area because there's always water movement. If you move around, you'll find fish. Um,
Right.
whereas towards that back pocket of East Matagorda Bay, um, at that point you really only have the water going out towards Sargent or going up towards the ICW. But even
Hmm.
like further back, that water's not really moving as much, or it's moving a little bit slower. So um, yeah,
Yeah. So like if we do have an opportunity, we can launch off at by Sergeant,
hmm
and then we can work the reefs on that side. There's a couple patches of there's some deeper reefs than uh, than 2 to 3 feet. They got some deeper reefs in that area, and then maybe another opportunity is we'll launch off on the other side of Matagorda and fish the reefs on that side. But they're all scattered. The ones on the sergeant side, those are most of those are closer together. Besides that one that comes up in the middle, but there's some deeper reefs on the other side for sure. But I think we could if you have the opportunity, me and you can go focus on just hitting up those reefs, and then I could show you how I fish it, and maybe you can point out some things that you figure out different, or maybe you figure out something that I don't know about it. But
yeah,
I definitely sometimes I like just reef jumping in Matagorda. That can be fun, especially if you have a motor now on your boat. I got one too, so that'll be fun. So we don't have to stress our legs as much as we used to.
yeah. So I covered according to my map afterwards, I covered around 15, 16 miles um, throughout the day.
Jeez.
Yeah, I so I have the Bixby J2 motor. Over the time, I ended up with a assortment of 4 batteries, because I use a proprietary batteries, and I went through 2.5 of them. So,
Yeah,
um,
Aaron said he wants a third wheel. Come on, Aaron. I owe you a trip anyways. But um, yeah, but yeah. Let's try to make something happen. Was
yeah.
that May 3rd? Are you free May 3rd?
Uh, I
I'm all talking big watch. And then something comes up and I can't make
um,
it, guys. Y'all have fun without me.
I am not certain on May 3rd yet, and I'll talk to you after the stream on why. But um, we have another place I was looking at, and it's out of the boundaries. Um, that channel that runs up to Lake Austin. Um, so I was looking at that too because it's just very reminiscent of Freeport. You know, all those um, all those inlets and marsh areas. Um, but yeah, the more I look at it, it was just I really wanted to fish over towards that cut over by closer towards Sargent. Again, Renee, I'm gonna have to get with you to see what the rules are
Yeah,
and the
expand those.
boundaries.
Yeah, and if you would have included the Colorado River, that'd have been a lot easier fishing. Yeah, I definitely would have done a lot better just fishing that part.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Man, I know we've talked a lot right now about the inshore stuff, but I know that you have a lot to talk about with the offshore stuff.
I
So
could talk all day about offshore stuff. Yeah, so there's several rigs out there, Matagorda. They got one. I forgot. My buddy called it the 3 mile, but it's not really 3 miles. So me and him go back and forth. It's more like a mile and a half. I mean, it's just right there, like a mile and a half, 2 miles. There's a rig right there, and then there's one further out. And then if you go further down in Sargent, if you're actually in Sargent, there's another short reef rig that's
yeah.
really close by. But how you launch that is always the trick, right? Because you got to drag your kayak over some rocks just to
Mm,
get into the water. Um, and to help you out, there's like this winding bridge that comes down. And as soon as you come down that winding bridge, you exit right off there. You might have better luck if you probably go down the beach a little bit and come back and try to get. I don't know if you can get beach access, but for the most part, I just come off that winding bridge and then launch right there, and that rig's right there. Um, Most of the times it's sharks. If you like shark fishing, you'll catch a whole bunch of sharks and jacks. Um, every now and then you'll get lucky with kingfish. And all you need is a spoon. Like you ain't gotta get crazy with baits, just a good spoon. I think I took Jonathan out there one time, or Joshua, not Jonathan, Joshua out there one time, and we just there was a whole bunch of sharks out there. If you like that kind of fishing, you like those long fights, you like to fight for sharks, that's a good spot. Every now and then you'll get lucky. If you go closer to Matagorda, you'll see the tarpon roll around those rigs or a little bit past those rigs towards the other rig. There's been cobia caught there. Some people like to troll maybe a mile past that for kingfish. There's a deeper, it drops off a little bit deeper. Once you get past that rig, it gets, there's like a little gut or something or deeper. And those kingfish love going up and down that deeper area. Um, sometimes of the year, um, those tarpon will come all the way up to like the second and third sandbar of Matagorda, and I've seen them there. And Matagorda is one of the. I probably told you about this story about the big old hammerhead shark.
hmm
I told you about this story, right? So
Yeah, you did.
I'll share it again. So I was out there. Me and my buddy Mark were out there hunting down these tarpon, and this huge hammerhead. I'm in a. I think I'm in an outback. I'm in an outback, and the hammerhead was bigger than my. And I think my outback's like 12.6 feet long, and he was bigger than my kayak and wider than my kayak. And to see a shark in a fin, and they have huge like dorsal fins, and to see that big old fin, and you're sitting in a kayak, and you see a huge fin just go across, and then you see a body mass that's bigger than you. Yeah, it'll change your perspective. Now I head out there with the PA-14. Um, okay, sure thing. Jeremy's me and Jeremy got a couple fishing stories, and we had a good time. Will do. But yeah, that seeing that big of a shark out there, and usually those sharks are there for the same reason we're there as those tarpon. They eat those tarpon, and that's how that's how big old big old hammerhead shark is there to get so big is eating those tarpon. Um, it just changed my perspective. Definitely gonna fish or I definitely fish a bigger kayak now, seeing that big shark. And I've been out in Matagorda where like the bull sharks and black tips, they'll come up and they're kind of curious and nosy, and they'll just kind of get close to the kayak. And sometimes I ran over like a school of them, because sometimes when those sharks are feeding, there's tarpons in there too feeding the same bait, and you'll see them roll, you'll see them jump, and you're okay, that clearly was a tarpon. And then you'll also see spinner sharks jump up and start spinning and commotion, and they're all just feeding on all that bait that's out there in Matagorda. But some guides will bet that if you wanted to go see a tarpon, you head out to that rig that's out there by the 3 Mile Cut. It's by the 3 Mile Cut, and you'll see them. But catching them's a different story. They're very difficult to catch in that area. But we'll see how this year goes. And we'll try to give it a try or two and see if we get lucky out there in Matagorda. But it's definitely a fun time out there. Sometimes that water can be very dirty, depending on the weather and rain and wind, or sometimes it can be really rewarding and clear. And it's not like Galveston water where it's mainly dirty, like by the Brazos and stuff. It's either hit or miss. So don't. My recommendation is that if you're planning to go offshore, I wouldn't, and you're not too experienced, go with somebody that's experienced, and don't go anything past 1 foot swells. And then until you get the hang of things, definitely make sure you get your life jacket on, and maybe have something for a little bit of protection on you, because I've never been in an incident where a shark got too aggressive with me, but I mean, they will come up to your kayak because they're just curious.
Yeah,
um,
especially if you're at a rig and
excuse me.
if you're at a rig and you start catching fish, it's like if you bring up fish, it's like the whole ecosystem comes up with it. So
Right,
you bring
right.
up a fish, and then all the fish start coming up with it, and of course, as all the fish come up with it, all the sharks and other predators start coming up too. It's very interesting to see that.
Yeah, yeah. I had a friend bring up a jack at the sergeant rig, and like three sharks were right behind it. And that jack, when he pushed down, he snapped his line. But seeing those three sharks come up with that jackfish, uh, that was pretty cool. But yeah, make sure you have gear to fish. Uh, that won't. What depends what you're trying to do, right? If you're just trying to
Yeah,
fish for jacks, stick to what you got. Let them snap your line. But if you know you're gonna run into sharks and you don't want to lose your favorite lure, I say don't throw it out there, because those sharks will snap your line and steal those lures. There are a ton of sharks out there for sure. But yeah, that's the offshore Matagorda for me.
yeah,
But I
it's
think I've done more inshore in Matagorda than I did offshore. But either or, you can have fun both ways.
yeah, it's definitely a very interesting place. For I'm in Pearland, and it's like an hour and a half drive, so that's actually not bad. An hour and a half would be like for me driving all the way down to Galveston and going past the toll bridge and going to Christmas Bay, being like an hour and 15 an hour or so. Um, which, by the way, if you haven't heard, Galveston, whoever the toll road authority over in Galveston, they're getting rid of the tolls on the bridge. So um,
Nice.
Yeah,
What was it?
so
Was it like $3,
I think it was like
$4?
$2 in cash only. Um,
Yes, yeah, that's right.
a lot of one of the major complaints was like whenever they closed down 45 the causeway due to like there's a major accident or something like that. The only way on and off the island is either the causeway, the ferry, or going that way down Blue Water Highway and going over that toll road. And for it being a cash only toll road, which not many people carry cash nowadays, it was very difficult sometimes, and it's very frustrating for motorists if they're trying to leave the island. Um, so
Yeah.
that's one of the complaints I saw about it, but something to look forward to now that they're not going to have that. And uh, yeah, so I'm currently part of the Matagorda Kayak Fishing Incorporated, which is a nonprofit focused down there on providing education and opportunities for the youth in that area. So I'll be part of their tournaments and uh, their fellowship that they have. So yeah, the next tournament is July 26th. If you guys are interested in joining, look up Matagorda Kayak Fishing and just keep your eye out for details on there. The last tournament this past weekend, the Matagorda Kayak Slam, that one had a little over 30 teams show up. So great tournament. Um, I just need tournaments in my life right now. I'm very sad still about the Saltwater
Saltwater.
Survival Series. So
Yeah. I mean, they offered a lot of people to, hey, do you want to buy it? But I get it. It's a lot of work to throw a
it's a lot of
tournament.
work. No, it's a
It
lot of
is.
work.
I think I've hosted like a handful. I'm like, man, that is way too much,
Yeah.
like to do. So shouts out to you guys that run tournaments and throw tournaments. Um, yeah, that's a lot of work.
No.
And I think maybe that's what it was. The work, the setup, the build up for it was too taxing and time consuming for those
Yeah.
guys. They practically were trying to give it away. Mm. But
Well, hopefully
hopefully
we have.
something else will. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
hopefully something else comes along.
Yeah. Hopefully something else comes along. Um, I think next time we should probably do an offshore discussion, just because it's coming up to that point in the season, and yeah, that's.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the Google Maps right now. I'm just like, I should have done this. I should have done this. I should have gone
yeah,
over here.
yeah, yeah. So my buddy's gonna host another offshore trip. It's
Yep.
usually about 100 anglers show up. It's anywhere from 50 to 100, and there's a whole bunch of us guys over there that are a little bit more experienced going offshore to help you guys get past the breaker. The hard part is coming back in, and kind of point you in the right direction. Baits, gear, kayaks, different kayaks you can use, how to troll baits, how to throw baits, and just trying to point you in the right direction if you want to fish offshore. There's a ton of people in Florida that actually do offshore fishing. They don't even do inshore fishing. They just mainly do offshore fishing. Um, but yeah, so we'll try to get him on here maybe and talk
Yep.
about this trip that's coming up and things to get prepared for if anybody's interested to learn to go offshore fishing and want to try to explore more options, more fishing techniques,
Yeah.
probably more
It's
fishing
usually
gear.
it's usually in Corpus, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's
Yeah.
Corpus. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we've done a couple in Freeport.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but mainly in Corpus. Yeah, for sure. But I'll see if he wants to join.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to end it here a little bit early this week, but if you want to join us live, we are live every other Tuesday, or we try to be. You can find us at facebook.com/1 last cast podcast. We're also on YouTube, as well as Twitch, and also online at onelastcastpodcast.com. Another shout out to our sponsors, Knock and Tail Lures. If you go to knockandtaillures.com, look at all this cool stuff that's coming out of there. Michael's a great guy, and it's a great soft plastic to have in your arsenal, as well as Dirty South Kayak Anglers, a great Facebook group to talk kayaking and fishing up and down the Texas coast. I'm going to also throw in there Matagorda Kayak Fishing, a great up and coming group. Find out more about those Matagorda tournaments that are upcoming. The next one is July 26th. 4A printing. If you're looking for a something custom gear, such as towels, buffs, or anything like that, Aaron is your guy. Search up 4A printing on Facebook. And of course, if you're looking for real estate here in Houston, search up Brittany Solesky. You can contact her at 281-740-0498. She said that she's giving away Merriel spots if you purchase a property. I don't know if that's actually true, but she is giving away a free trip with Merriel as part of any property purchase. So go on a fishing trip with him, and you'll learn just as much.
She also sells property, so if you want to get out of a property
Yeah.
or a situation, she'll help you get out of it. And she's been pretty successful at getting people in homes and also selling properties. So, yep.
Well, awesome. So, Merriel, do you want to end off our Matagorda episode with some points of wisdom, or?
Yeah, I don't. I feel like I need to go back into Matagorda, and it's been yeah. I like, dude. This whole time we've been talking, my mind has been going through Matagorda and remembering all the coves, all the guts, all the reefs that are behind a gut. Like, so my mind has not stopped thinking about areas that I want to test out. So forgive me if my mind's wandering, but it's really on Matagorda right now. It's been a while since I've fished that area. I want to say about a year or so, but that was a part of my fishing journey where that's all I was fishing is focusing on Matagorda. And there's things that I had to know, things that I want to do, and then there's things that I stumbled across as well. Sometimes you'll see, like, you're out there fishing and you'll see a boat on this random area of water, and you're like wondering what are they doing, and they get off that spot, and then you go check it out and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like a reef right here, and you got like a. So what I like to do is I'll use like a 1/4 ounce jig head, and I like to fill the bottom with that 1/4 ounce jig head. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
I'll work it too, and try not to get hung up. Um, but that helps me determine like what's right here, and then hey, look, my lure fell pretty far right here, so there's like this seems a little deeper on this end. So, but yeah, definitely need to get back out to Matagorda. So, uh, oh, words of wisdom, I have none. Fish more, yes.
Fish more.
Yeah, fish more, work less. You'll find another job.
If you take those to heart, we're not responsible for whatever happens. That's my
He's like,
disclaimer
oh,
right
screw this job.
there.
I'm going fishing. All right.
Merriel told me to quit my job so I can go fishing more.
And I'll find another job.
All right, y'all. Y'all guys have tight lines, and we'll see you back out in the water. Again, if you want to search us up, you can find us at onelastcastpodcast.com or on facebook.com/onelastcastpodcast. Y'all have a good one.
Take care.